mystery theory. Today, I am going to share with you part 2 on the series of Charles Manson, or the Manson family. If you missed part 1 and you're interested in the very beginning, or how things started to develop in the childhood and some of the first signs, and a little bit more into the psychology of the case, I will have part 1 linked down below and in a card, so you can go ahead and check it out. And otherwise, today we're going to start from where I left off in part 1, which we were talking about how callous children or unemotional children are really separated into 2 categories. The nature one, where they were born empathetic and grow up in an abusive and unstable household, and they use this an emotional thing to protect themselves. And then nurture one, where kids are born into a loving family, but they have that they lack empathy. They're unemotional children with no apparent reason, and apparently that is the hardest kind to treat, because it's really more like the way that their brain is wired. However, today we are going to continue with him growing up and get into his time in jail and the things that he learned there. Because, listen, this guy, as you can probably tell, his problems started since he was a little kid. But it's almost unbelievable how things worked out for him in a way that he ended up learning most of the things that he used to create the cult, and all these things he learned in prison. Yeah, it's such a complex and interesting thing. But let's go back a little bit, because one of the things that we were talking about is when Charles Manson moved with his aunt and uncle. Remember that they lived the closest to the prison where Catherine, his mom, was at, and he was going to go visit her. So he ended up living with his aunt and uncle, and they had a little girl at the time that he moved in. She was 8 years old. I mentioned some episodes with her and how she was afraid of the guy, the little guy back then. But something that I wanted to mention is what happened when he first moved in with them, which by the time that he was 5 years old, he was going into the 1st grade, okay? And this is a very well-known story, but I don't know if everyone knows about it. He went to the school where the 1st grade school teacher was infamous for abusing and terrorizing students in her class. Now, she mocked Charles from day 1 because his mom was in jail. And there's this thing that happened where he ran away from school and went back home just to find his uncle being mad at him for crying over what the teacher was saying about his mom, which, by the way, makes absolutely no no sense. Number one, a teacher that's a bully. Sorry. No. I think you have to reevaluate your teaching credentials if you feel the need of abusing and terrorizing children. That I do not understand how everyone knew about it and nobody did anything. Now I have to tell you a little story of mine. When my daughter was in the 2nd grade, she's now going into the 10th grade, but when she was in the 2nd grade, she was in the class of this teacher that's been in the school forever. And they had more than one teacher in that grade, and she happened to be in the class of this teacher that she had a bad reputation with the children, okay? And I remember my 2nd oldest son, he was telling my daughter how the teacher, would hit the students and they would do this and that, and it was all made up. I mean, the teacher never did anything like that. It was like a cruel brother joke. And by, I don't know, the 3rd or 4th month, my daughter being in her class, I had to change her to another teacher because my daughter was terrified of this teacher. And I guess it was because she was very strict and she was a very good teacher that wouldn't let the students get away with stuff. So even though, she was never abusive, the kids would make up these stories that really were not true, but to terrorize the new students the next year. Now, I talked to this teacher. I went several times during the day at different times just to check on the teacher, and because my daughter didn't want to go to school. I mean, she was not having it. But I guess I wanted to tell you this story because even though the story goes as this was an abusive teacher, even today these things still happen. Some teachers get bad reputation, but I think the fact that this was confirmed because he went back home, told the uncle, she's making fun of my mom being in jail, she's making fun of me, and you would think that the uncle would go straight to the school and be like, hey, what's your deal? Why are you abusing, or why are you bullying my nephew? Well, no. The uncle decided that he was going to dress him as a girl with a dress from his own daughter, Joanne, and send him to school the next day. That way he could learn how to be a real man. Later on, Charles Manson said that this was so humiliating, and with a good reason. There was this psychologist that was talking about how bad this can be for a person that doesn't identify itself or himself in this case as the opposite sex. How it's normal for kids that are exploring their sexuality to do this kind of thing, but if you are they make you dress like the opposite sex, especially by an adult when you are a kid. That is one of the most traumatizing and kind of dangerous thing that you could do, or that you can even go through. And to mention that this happened to more than one serial killer. They went through this same thing. So, okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, was it the time? Because what you mentioned, it was about the same time, maybe, that is this something that they used to do to teach kids a lesson? Was this part of a normal thing? Because, hey, listen, the uncle sent him dressed as a girl to school, but no school psychologist, counselor, or even anybody who cared, a parent, somebody from the office, nobody were like, excuse you, I mean, why are you dressing as a girl? I guess somebody asked, and probably somebody saw this little guy being humiliated by going dressing as a girl, so they must have known that he didn't choose to do that. So it goes beyond my understanding how nobody else saw this as abuse. Again, maybe it was the time that he was born, and maybe this was the kind of thing that was used by parents or by adults at the time. Like now would be to take away your kid's phone and they feel like they're gonna die without the phone. Well, maybe that was the kind of punishment that they used back then. But I find it sad but interesting that more than one serial killer had to go through this. And again, it's described as one of the most traumatizing events for kids. Now, he ended up living with the uncle for about 2.5 years, so he had to kind of get used to their way of parenting. Now, at the time, if you're wondering what he learned or what he started to be interested in while he was growing up, it was basically music, which is he's very well known for, and also guns, even though we know that his best gun was his brain or his way of manipulating people. Now, in 1942, his mom got released on parole, so Charles went back to his mom, who, by the way, according to him, was not as strict as his mom's sister and husband. He was happy to be with her. And something that Catherine maybe didn't know as a young mom, or maybe she just wasn't as involved, but as soon as she started to kind of pay attention, she realized that this kid was having a lot of problems. I mean, he started stealing stuff and blaming it on others, and I'm talking about a kid. He would trick people into buying him stuff, especially candy. Being a kid, it kind of makes sense, that's all he wanted. But again, he was manipulating people, he was skipping school, and we're talking about elementary school. These are not good signs. So Kathleen asked her mom, Nancy, for help. Nancy was very religious, as you could probably remember, so she tried to help by talking to Charles and trying to explain to him why he shouldn't do what he was doing, but he continued to do the same. Again, going back to the psychologist, they say that, again, callous children or unemotional children are really not good with punishment. They do not care about how they're punished. several studies, the only way to deal with this kind of children is to reward their good behavior, and kind of that will encourage them to follow that good behavior instead of the bad one. However, that they did not know. Kathleen mom didn't know. Kathleen didn't know. So they tried to talk to him and punish him the best they could. So Kathleen started looking around for different institutions or places that she could send him in order to get help. And when he was 12 years old, she sent him to the first one. This was a religious institution too, and according to one of the first reports, he was very likable. He was overall, he behaved okay, but he was also described as moody and paranoid. Now, that was in when he was 12 years old, okay? So, in December of 1947, Charles got Christmas off, where he could go and visit his family. So he got released from this institution, and for some reason, he went to his aunt and uncle's home, not his mom's. Remember that they had his cousin Joanne there. Now, when relatives went to church that Sunday, he went back to his normal self, and he tried to steal the gun from his uncle that he hid at his home. So he ended up back at the institution sooner than expected. But he later ran away and started to steal and commit very petty crimes. And this is kind of a story that will repeat itself because he was caught pretty quickly. Then in 1948, he was sent to Boys Town, which is another institution. 4 days later, he ran away. He stole a car with another boy, and they drove to Illinois, where they committed armed robberies, and they found a quote-unquote job by helping his friend's uncle, who was a professional thief. Needless to say, he was caught in 1949, and he was sent to Indiana Boys School. Now, this was one of the harsher schools that you could have been sent to, and now this place was full of criminals, dangerous boys. I mean, they were young, but they were some of the worst in the country. And just so you know, I mean, some of the things that they did was manslaughter, assault, armed robbery. I mean, this wasn't like the place where he was before. This was almost like a prison, but with dangerous people and not so much security, even though they claim to have that. Now, in this institution, even the staff was known for abusing smaller kids. And after arriving, he was raped very violently. He was a troublemaker. He was always in some kind of, I don't know. He always had something going on. He always had a plan to do something that wasn't good. And, but being raped the way that he was, and I'm not going to go into detail, but it really also dissociation disorder. I think that's what it's called. I mean, this experience made him worse and started to suffer from these things, even though they were not diagnosed at the time. Some of the behavior that he presented at the time would indicate one of these things. The teachers and the staff knew that he was very manipulative, and he would only do good things if he could get something in exchange that he really wanted. But we also know that he lived in fear of abuse, and he was a smart guy after all. So he decided that he was gonna play what they call the crazy game, where he would act crazy only to scare them off. Scare these boys off that were messing with him. So every time they go by him, he would start to scream like he was crazy, and hit things and hit himself and scare them off that way. He was, again, a small kid. By the time he was an adult, as I mentioned yesterday, he was about 5'2", 5'3". Can't remember the exact number, but for a guy, that's pretty small. So I guess that he was taking advantage a lot more than other boys. So maybe it wasn't a boy in particular, but kind of many boys. Now, he tried to escape from this place. As you can probably imagine, this was too much for him. In only 1949, he tried 4 times until October of 1949, where he ended up escaping, and he always would find a body, He found this boy or boys that went with him. They were caught. So he ended up going to the National Training School, where again he continued to charm and manipulate others, but he ended up convincing the psychologist there that he was a good guy, he was a good kid, and that everything that he was doing was because of the lack of love from his mom and dad. So, for the time period that he was there, he came up with this plan of playing the victim with the counselors and with the psychologist and everything. And basically he wanted them to believe that he was, in essence, good. But he was acting up this way just because of the lack of love. So, the psychologist ended up recommending sending him to this nature bridge place, where, I mean, this is the kind of thing that describes perfectly the kind of person that Charles Manson was. He would manipulate people into letting him do whatever he wanted to do or go wherever he wanted to go, and then do one of these crazy things or abusive things and crimes even. And people would be like, how did I believe this guy? Because really, after he was transferred, recommended by the psychologist in the training, the National Training School, and he moved to Nature Bridge, he was caught sexually abusing another boy, and had to be transferred and considered extremely dangerous. So he had to go to a maximum security place for boys, trouble boys. I mean, just think about it. This guy was so good at what he did since he was a little boy that he managed to completely fool the adults around him, especially somebody like a psychologist who is trained to deal with this kind of boys and this kind of people, even kids. Now, when he went to the maximum security prison, he learned pretty quickly that he needed to be in good behavior if he wanted to get anywhere. And so he decided to learn how to read, and he became a good prisoner, if you can call him that. Remember that since he was a little boy, he knew that, everyone knew that he would only act good if there was something he could get out of it. And in this case, he knew if he did that, he could be released. And he was. By the age of 19, he got out and moved back with his aunt and uncle. Goodness gracious, the patience that these people had with this guy. He was 19 years old, which meant that their daughter must have been 22. So she wasn't even with them, and they had to take in this trouble boy who's been molesting, raping, abusing other boys, who has been caught many times stealing. So I don't know if the aunt and uncle were genuinely good people that just couldn't let a nephew go on the streets, or if this kind of behavior was normal in their family. I really don't know. But he started to go to church with grandma, and gosh, this guy is a piece of work. Apparently he started getting some ideas from church, okay, that he could use for his, later on, what would be his cult. He would get a couple of them, which basically the idea of fearing hell. Do the things you have to do or you go to hell. That's his version of it. And that women needed to obey man. Okay, pretty much. Those are two of the first principles that he got from going to church, that he didn't take as intended, but he created his own reality around those things. Now, he went to his cousin's house, okay? Remember Joanne that I was telling you that she's probably 22 at this time? The one that defended him, and that he ended up saying, I had nothing to do with that. Yeah, that cousin opened up the doors of her home, and apparently she had a few teens, or maybe young adults in her home that were going to have some counseling. And she caught Charles trying to seduce one of them, and he was getting to her. So Joanne was so upset that she made him leave. She knew that he was up to no good with anybody. So I feel like at that point he started to try to find somebody to share his life with. I can only imagine somebody that spent most of their lives, in an institution, okay? Maybe not jail, but in an institution. Then all of a sudden you're free and you don't know what to do with your life. Apparently he wanted to meet people, and that's exactly what he was doing. So if this was under other circumstances, I would say, well, he's trying to is. But knowing who this guy is, I mean, good for Joanne for realizing that this could have been one of his victims. But just so you know, I mean, he tried. He tried to do the right thing, okay? When he was 20 years old, he proposed to this girl. Her name is Rosalie Willis. And they ended up getting married actually in January 13th, 1955. At that point, I feel like that was the only time that he was trying hard, or maybe fighting his own nature to be a good person. He got married, he got a job, he had friends, he continued to learn how to play guitar. I mean, he was trying to have a normal life. He was living in the same town as his aunt and uncle and cousin. But it didn't last because Rosalie got pregnant soon after and money was short, so Charles went back to what he knew how to do best, and that is stealing, and stealing cars in particular. Now, in the summer of 1955, he and his wife decided to go visit his mom, Kathleen, in California, where she was living at the time. But they didn't have money to get there, so he decided to steal this car. And according to my research, Rosalie did know. When they got there, they loved LA. But I mean, their good time was cut short because he was caught for stealing this car and for driving it across state lines. I mean, this is a federal crime. I don't know, sometimes you think of these people that came up with these crazy ideas and cults and how they manipulated people into believing them and doing whatever they wanted them to do. But then, when you really think about it, this guy was not a genius. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it, but so he stole the car in Ohio and then went to California. He thought he wasn't going to get caught. So he ended up going to court. He was mentally evaluated and he claimed, while he was mentally evaluated, he claimed that he didn't know how to live a normal life because he was in prison for so long, that he was trying his best, but he was making mistakes. So he ended up being, he got 5 years of probation, okay? Because the judge believed that he was trying his best, that he got married, he was expecting a child, and that with maybe the 5-year probation would be enough to keep him on check, and at the same time help him do good. But he had a court date in February of 1956 that he didn't go to. He skipped town. So, again, don't get it. How can you come up with a cult and people following you and you have that small of a brain? I do not understand that part, but well. So, yeah, that's why I don't get when people are like, oh, Charles Manson, that's the smartest guy. Please. I've known people smarter than that get away with a lot more than that. And I'm not saying get away with things is a good thing, but I'm just saying that people idolize this guy so much. And I'm like, really? Okay. On April of 1956, after his son was born, the son's name is Charles Manson Jr. And by this time, in case you're not following the years, he's 21 years old, okay? And right after his son was born, he was sent to prison because he didn't girls, how to isolate them, how to convince them that you are the only one who really truly loves them, and then beat them up because that's the control that they needed over these girls in order to pimp them. Now, I am telling you this because this is kind of the beginning of his learning on manipulation. This guy was born a manipulator, but hey, he found the tools in prison on how to be better at it, which makes absolutely no sense. But at the same time, it's part of who he became because of the people that he met in prison. Now, if you read this book, I read it, and again, it's okay. The book is How to Win Friends and Influence People, and there was even a class in jail that really interests the guy, Charles. I mean, and it kind of reminded him of his own ways of manipulating people. One of the ideas that really stuck with him, it was the quote, "Let the other fellow feel like the idea is his." I'm sorry, but I have to pause my story for this little commentary. I find it very interesting that people can use a self-help book in completely the opposite way, or for a bad thing. If you ever read the book, you probably know that it's basically manipulating 101. Basically, it teaches you in a way that you don't really feel like that's what you're doing, but it teaches you how to get away with things and how to convince people that what you want them to do is their idea. That is my personal opinion on this book in particular. But listen, there are a lot of self-help books that teach you how to manipulate people. Okay, they do not tell you, oh, how to manipulate your boss, how to manipulate your wife, how to manipulate your husband, how to manipulate your friends. But they give you all the strategies to do that. And under the pretense that this is the way of getting along with people. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just wrong. Okay, that's just wrong. And it's coming from me that I have a lot of thoughts in this thing of manipulating people. And I'm not gonna get into it, but I'll share that in another video. But I just find it very interesting that they're teaching these inmates how to manipulate people. And again, the book doesn't say how to manipulate people. But listen, if you're a psychologist, you don't have to read the title of the book to understand, hey, this sounds like not a great idea. We're teaching these people to manipulate others to get away with what they want, and maybe if they're here, maybe their intentions are not the best. And again, we'll go into the debate that, there are things in this world that can be used for good or can be used for bad. I 100% agree with that. What I do not agree on is the idea of teaching inmates, especially this kind of inmates, how to manipulate people to do whatever the heck they wanted. Just my thoughts. Maybe some people got really good ideas from this class and book, and they did great. And maybe Charles Manson was ready to use it the opposite way. But on September 30th, 1958, he ended up getting out of jail. His wife was not there for him. I mean, she left him like a year before he got out, and so he had nowhere to go, so he moved in with his mom, Catherine. So he started practicing everything that he learned in this little class class that he took. So and kind of mixing it with the pimps that he met, while in prison. So he attempted to pimp a girl. Her name is Leona, and he was also continuing to steal money. Cars. This guy would never learn a lesson. And again, going back to the very beginning of this, that unemotional children, and which later on usually become a psychopath, they do not respond well to punishment. And being in jail for him, it just really wasn't a punishment, even though he didn't have a good time everywhere he went. So this genius got arrested again in June of 1961 when he was 26 years old, and he ended up going to McNeil Island, where he decided to study Scientology. If you don't know what Scientology is, good for you. It's basically, I'm gonna call it a cult. It is considered a religion where they influence and manipulate others. I'm sorry, that's just my personal opinion, but they have beliefs in their beliefs are just in past lives, and how they use that information, it's crazy. I know there's a lot of very well-known people in Hollywood that are part of this, and I can't remember her name, but do you remember Carrie, the wife of King of Queens? I love that show, by the way. She was in this thing and she got out and she wrote a book about it. She's been everywhere. So if you know her story, you probably have heard of Scientology. There's also a video by Kendall Ray about it. I haven't watched it myself, but a friend was telling me about it. I don't know. But really, I don't know if it's worth your time learning about something so weird and creepy. I guess if you're curious, it is. If not, I just find it like nonsense. So yeah, I'm trying to remember her name. It's not Mia. It's not Ria. It's not. Gosh. Okay, never mind. If you're interested, just Google it. But apparently he used this Scientology knowledge to manipulate women into believing that he could help them get their past, leave their past behind and move on with a better life. He also, while he was in jail, discovered the Beatles, and according to this, I don't know if it was part of the documentary, I can't remember where it was, but apparently he was obsessing over the Beatles and their success and how people love them, and he started to write and play his own songs. He was really good at it, and even the staff in prison believed that he could find a good outlet and he could make money actually with the music and support himself once he got out. But here comes the kicker. In 1967, when he was 32 years old, and after spending most of his life in prison or in some kind of an institution, he was eligible for parole, but he decided to stay. He asked to stay. And in case you didn't know, because I had no idea that this is a thing out there, but apparently there are a lot of inmates that request not to go out on parole. Some people can't adjust to a normal life after spending most of their life in prison. They have rules, and then they have schedules, they have food, and they get used to the idea of, hey, so bad. So there are actually a lot of people who request to stay in jail. But he was still released on parole that year, and he actually got permission to relocate to San Francisco from his parole officer. Now, in case you didn't know, but this is part of the story that it's more well known, when he moved there was the quote-unquote summer of love. I would have loved to live at that time. I think it's interesting and it's different and it's okay. There were a lot of bad things going on at the time. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of not so great things going on. But kind of the idea, it's I don't know. So 100,000 people were going to be getting together in the city. Now, they were random people. I mean, from everywhere. There were protesters, hippies, part of the Black Panther movement. And I guess Charles got inspired by all this, you know. They kind of all belong to a different group, but they blended together and they came together in different events and things. And, you know, he wanted to blend in. He wanted to learn from the different groups that were there. So he ended up blending with the hippies. And he wanted to learn from them and kind of mimic them and survive because, hey, he was getting food and he was, you know, peace and love and come here, I'll share my hot dog kind of thing. But there, while he was there, he knew again that the more that he knew about this hippie movement, the more easily he was going to find people in that movement who would follow him and create his own movement, if that makes sense. So there he met Mary Bronner. Now, he again manipulated her into believing that, you know, he was part of this movement, that he shared her ideas, and I mean, she soon enough gave him a place to sleep and started staying with her. He started to convince her that, again, the brainwashing that he learned in jail, that he was the only one that listened to her, that valued her. I mean, he used the techniques. And he also convinced her to bring other women to the house for this quote-unquote hippie love. So he ended up developing a large following of women that just would fall for this charming guy. Okay. Yeah, maybe not so charming to me. He started calling them the family, and this is where the story begins. So he would use his Christian beliefs that he learned from while he was going to church with his grandma, that women needed to be obedient to men. And so, okay, this is where it all blends, right? Because he learned about the hippie movement, which, by the way, it was kind of crazy and out there. There are some things that I find so interesting and would love to have been there to experience and see and even dress like them. But there are some other things, like they were having sex with whoever and whatever, and yeah, not my cup of tea. So he kind of mixed the idea of the hippies being a little bit promiscuous, or some of them anyways, not everyone, of course, and he mixed that idea with the idea of women needed to be obedient to men because that's what the Bible said. And he used that, he mixed them into one, and he would tell women, you need to go sleep with that person and that person and that person. I'm like, who's this guy? It's a ridiculous mix of a pimp playing God with the Bible. sake. Okay, now we can all agree that these techniques work, right? So, hey, apparently if you want to, oh, sorry, if you're gonna want to manipulate people, just read a few books about the theme, and apparently the techniques do work because that's what he did. And he grabbed all the information from around him, like even the hippie movement and the Bible that had nothing to do with that, and used them in a way to convince people that he was right and everyone else was wrong. I mean, gosh, I find it so ridiculous, but hey, it must have had something. I don't know. So he ended up going around in this rainbow painted school bus again, kind of mimicking the hippies, and this was a trouble. They trouble in this bus around San Francisco, and he would just go around to find more ladies that would want to join his movement, which, by the way, is just a cult. They ended up moving the family to LA, and this is where I'm gonna end it because we're almost around the 1 hour mark. But they moved the family to LA in the fall of 1967. Okay. And let me tell you something. If you think that they lived a glamorous life, that they had enough money, well, no. I mean, they were dumpster diving for food. And in 1968, they moved to the Swan Movie Ranch in LA. And this wasn't because they had money to pay to stay there, but it actually was in exchange for doing chores, okay? So, and that's where, 1968, we're very close to the time that the murder started to happen, and kind of it developed into that. Again, the first part was mostly about his childhood and some of the emotional traits that he presented while growing up. We also saw the psychologist side of things and explanation as of why not only Charles Manson behaved that way, but how a lot of psychopaths behave, and how they ended up becoming criminals, and some of them serial killers. So now we see him growing up in today's episode and spending his time in jail or in different places for boys that were trouble boys, actually. And how he used all that to become a cult leader. So, it wasn't the book in jail. It was also not the hippie movement. It was not his grandma trying to help him, taking him to church. This guy was born this way and used every piece of information available to him to become who he was in the end. The Charles Manson that we know. It is part of its life, okay? I guess I have to say that to finish this video, or this part too. I guess it's part of life. There are some people that are good in nature, and they come into this world, they suffer a lot, but they see the good in every situation, and they become amazing human beings. There are other kids who are raised in a bad environment, but they were born in an essence so good that nothing that happens around them really would make them go to the dark side. And then there's this kind of kid who are born that their brain is wired differently, yet it is not considered a mental illness. guess that's where the difference between being born evil and being born with something different in your brain. You have to decide which one you want to pick. Because you either believe that he was born evil because there's a spiritual thing behind it, or you must believe that there's something physically wrong inside his brain that made him the way he was. Regardless of the one you choose, it will never be an excuse for what he did and how he manipulated people into doing the crazy things that he wanted to do himself. But in my opinion, he was a coward and he just didn't want to do it himself. Maybe he was not. He didn't think it was going to be strong enough, big enough, powerful enough to do it. But hey, there are plenty of people who are very weak physically, yet they do crazy things with other weapons that are not really people. So I guess to close this video, I'll leave you with that. With the idea that, yeah, he took all those classes and yes, they did have an influence. Yes, the church had an influence on him. Yes, the hippie movement. Yes, he got all this idea from all different places, but in the end, it kind of depended in his essence what he did with that information. There's people that will join and will start their own movement to help another movement. There's people that will use that information for the best, to help people, to be useful for society. And then you see this guy who's just using this information and the, what can I call it, the intelligence. I don't know. I don't think the guy was smart. Sorry. If you believe that he was one of the smartest people in the world, I'm sorry. I just disagree. But I guess I can't really give you all my opinion on it because I need to finish the series before I do. So, as a recap, a troubled child, a callous child, an emotional child, growing up in a hard environment, rejected by his dad, not so much loved by his mom, but with a bunch of good people that wanted to help him. Yet he managed to get in enough trouble to spend most of his time, or life, behind bars, either as a kid or as a grown-up, getting in trouble and thinking that he was going to get away with it. I never did. And now, a cult leader that used everything that happened to him in his own benefit, confirming what the psychologist said in the beginning, that really the only way that they would behave good is if they could get something good out of it. And I guess he needed all that information in order to create what he created in the end. I'm gonna let you guys go. It's been an hour, and I'll be back with part 3 soon. If you want to watch this series from start to finish, and you're watching this in the future, I'll have a playlist on the top of the screen and down below. Please check it out, and you can hear the story from the beginning until the end.